Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
Our real side activities always reflect our agreements, decisions, and intent placement. The real side is here and now in actuality, as everything is in the nowness of the isness a true reality, and only through the consciousness affected body forms and vehicles are we afforded the illusion of segregation and differentiation of dimension, life levels, and creational positioning. That as we formulate the ideas that we do, the thoughts and emotions that we generate via the body vehicles, even though we may not see the immediate effects of our creations, as they take the moments they will to process onto the physical level, in actuality they are immediate and being expressed manifested on the real side, the other dimensions of life. And as our awareness view is vacated from the physical level providing physical level body forms, so we may be shown glimpses of the everything we are manifesting through our constant idea creating, as though we are selecting random scenes from the movies we are making, all that we are creating present now in reality, as I said, but for the personal self to be afforded an everything simulated view, this would be somewhat overwhelming, like trying to watch a million movies simultaneously. And as we set our intent with the ears, the recognition of the true reality, as a simulation and experience follows intent placement, so our experience's real side will alter accordingly to that which makes sense with life. As life is all about itself and the continuous recognition of its own endlessness, the real awareness which we all actually are is a part of this isness, everything reality, and so, as we learn to more so operate from the nowness of our true being selves, so we no longer will be generating unregulated ideas, but rather, as we stand in the nowness of the real awareness, automatically then will we be operating from a position which makes sense with life. As we are allowing the real awareness to go about its process of is recognition, where it now will utilize the simulated forms in ways that are awareness beneficial, exacting a reflective principle, whereas we support life, we in turn are supported in equal measure in regards to our own awareness process. But if we remain immersed in the consciousness, creating the various idea attitudes, considerations, assumptions, and convictions that we may, we are now the reflected effect of our nonsensical idea generating, and prevent the real awareness from utilizing the simulated forms on the real side in awareness beneficial capacities. On the real side, then, should we establish intent and focus with the true reality through the created secondary personal self, such an intent is effecting the completed simulation of the process reflecting such an intent. For if everything is, then an intent with the true reality is already completed and including the simulated experience to that moment of is recognizing a completion. But the personal selves present somewhat as a delay to this culmination point based on the efficiency by which we can let it go and be totally indifferent to the consciousness that as we become complete with our intent in regards to the is, we must be in reflective accordance, the completeness of our intent placement, that of is recognition. That we are not there yet would indicate the intent, the focus isn't absolute, and simulation is effected accordingly, the process we are going through only as necessary as we decide that it is, that as we hold to the ideas and attachments of consciousness, all reflected, completed simulation effected will be the mirror of the extent by which we have our focus and intent with the is. But regardless, as the real awareness is a part of the isness everything in reality, everything simulated, effected from all consciousness, is available as a viewpoint comparisons and potential experiences through which we can not only bolster our own awareness, but assist others in regards to their own. But as I said, the personal self can only have revealed to it so much of the everything that is present in the nowness of the real awareness isness reality, and oftentimes we may find ourselves entering a real side experience part way through, as though we had entered the movie theatre late. This real side experience would be one such example where I would find myself in the company of a group of individuals, all human in appearance, and no impressions would I receive that suggested they were other than what they outwardly appeared to be. Generally, I am rather constant in my real side assignments, and generally they are of a nature that is life and awareness beneficial, for as I said, should we set intent with the is through the personal self, we now allow the real awareness to animate its simulation inserted forms in ways that support life and that facilitate the real awareness's ability to continuously endeavor to recognize the is through the everything equaling itself, earning one's way reflective principle, that of life supporting us through the support we afford it. Impressions revealed the group, those also on their respective processes of awareness, and myself had been involved in a sequence of operations, but that the personal self was only afforded the view part way through our overall assignment, a view which opened up where we seemed to be contained in a sophisticated technological chamber. We had to determine the means by which to negotiate our way through it, and we had a certain time limitation by which to do so. The chamber's ceiling comprised of what appeared to be keys of a kind, all partially embedded. Approximately half would be of a golden coloration, the other half would be red. I had the sense that I had successfully completed this, what seemed to be a test of some kind before, the idea being to determine the means of one's extrication from the chamber. As I said, the real awareness is a part of the isness everything that is through all consciousness. Everything effecting is present in the nowness of its reality, and even though the personal self may never have experienced something before, physical level or real side, from the real awareness perspective, so everything would have the sense of familiarity, as there is nothing that is in effect the real awareness isn't through, and therefore familiar with. But specifically, would I have the real awareness impression sense that I had been tasked with completing this test before, perhaps a real side experience forgotten, one that may even stem back to previous lifetimes. For indeed, the group would seemingly have no inkling on how to be liberated from this chamber. They would be waiting on my lead, and one of the group would mention how I was an expert in such real side experiences of this nature, and that I had done this before. I would respond by stating how I was trying to remember the means of extraction, but of course far better to lean to the real awareness oversight and know-how, as opposed to attempting to dredge the method of escape from memory. As I said, I had the sense of having done this before, and indeed the individual of the group had declared this was the case. Real awareness impressions would trump personal self-memory, however, and the technique would come to me. I would simply make physical contact with every key that was read, running my hand over each of them, and they would be transformed to gold, as the other keys were. Every key now of a gold coloration, so a panel would emerge from a wall, presenting me with another key, and on removal of it, so a door would hiss open, and the group and myself proceeded onwards, completing this curious test before the allotted time period concluded. No impressions did I receive as to what purpose this served, why I had evidently completed this test before, and why I was now doing so again, or what would befall us should we fail, only that the group and I were received most appreciatively by a further group of individuals, that impressions revealed were either real guides or beings more aware than myself and my group. One of the aware beings was in the outward form of the famous television chef Gordon Ramsay, not the genuine individual, but perhaps a real guide assuming his form. The group and I were afforded now the next stage on what seemed to be an assignment or objective, that our successful completion of the Chamber of Keys test had allowed, as we were set to be deployed to another dimensional position. Perhaps symbolically, we had afforded ourselves the keys to the next step in our decided objective, the keys that had become as gold as I touched them. Maybe only those of a certain awareness could be entrusted with the assignment we currently were undertaking, gold being very much the colour associated with the true reality. So the chamber of keys perhaps purely symbolic, that as we become more so aware, we affect experiences in reflective measure, we take on more responsibility that furthers our awareness process as we take these greater positions and assignments on. The group and myself would find ourselves in a series of underground chambers, festooned it seems with various robotic body forms, and it appeared overall we were gathering a series of clues or pointers that would then reveal as to where our next destination lay. We would actually dismantle a number of these robots, all of which present in the underground system seemed to serve no purpose, somewhat drone-like and oblivious of their surroundings, as though forgotten, abandoned, and rather functionless. They would neither protest or resist in any way our disassembling of them, and eventually we would find a particular robot that had as though a file or data contained in its inner mechanics that we sought and indicated our next destination as though following a trail of clues, as I said. The real awareness could have simply afforded the personal self all that was required in regards to how to reach a location in creation, could have in fact just placed the simulated self directly into the target scene, but then the less adventuresome the experience, the less it sticks in the memory on awaking. And if every experience is for ultimately the recognizing of the ears from the comparison they provide, surely then the more viewpoints and comparative references we have, the better. More prudent then to draw out our journeys and assignments, that more of multi-dimensional creation is able to be explored. The group and myself would momentarily be positioned in my consciousness representing recreated physical level former UK house, as we would be planning our next destination from the files or data we had extracted from the robot in the underground system. Before departing, however, I would be compelled to pull apart one of the walls on the top floor of the house where we were positioned. Present behind it would be an entire community, it seemed, of people, as though a city within the very walls. As the house represents the consciousness, every idea the consciousness comprises of, the agreements and attachments, including those in relation to all individuals we ever have encountered throughout our many lifetimes, will be symbolically featuring within our real side recreated homes. As the process of awareness involves a facing and releasing of all ideas of the consciousness, as the bulk of the consciousness is the subconscious, that which we are unconscious of, all experiences, agreements, and attachments from previous lifetimes, the references of which no longer are available in what is the latest and current lifetime, as each lifetime we have a new body form and memory vehicle devoid of all previous lifetime ideas. So very often as we unveil these subconscious agreements and attachments, these ideas will be presented as being placed in hidden or seldomly used areas of the house, the attic, the basement, storage areas, or as, in this case, inside the very walls. Evidently, I had subconscious agreements and attachments with what seemed to be an entire city of humans, by whatever means such agreements were secured, and so was taking a moment to do a little consciousness effacing and releasing in the middle of our assignment. I would round up the entire city of humans and direct them to the front door, that as they departed my house, so this represented my relinquishing of agreement and attachment pertaining to these individuals, that although all ideas of the consciousness are retained as a part of its construct, we endeavour to release attachment to them, symbolized here as these humans being ousted. This completed, my group and I would be relocated to the next position that we had determined through the data as secured from the robot we had dismantled. We found ourselves now in a rather desolate and relatively barren planet, impressions suggesting a planet that had suffered a dark force controller instigated cataclysm. For indeed, in the aftermath had those of the species that had survived, that although were not human, they approximated the appearance of humans, now were operating in very harsh controlled situations. For these were a species and a planet not dissimilar to Earth, where they had been controlled by the Dark Force reptilians, and at a certain point had a global catastrophe been exacted, depopulating the species, and what followed would be a far more controlled experience for the survivors, where they would be existing in FEMA concentration-style containment areas, under the direct subjugation of military militia that served the Dark Forces' dictates and maintained control of the survivors of the species. For indeed have I revealed that this controller-slave dynamic plays out across multi-dimensional creation, utilizing very similar models and methodology, and where, should the enslaved species become too aware, so depopulation mechanisms are employed, and far harsher controlling circumstances generally following in the aftermath. This would be one such a species, a little further ahead then in the unrolling agendas as being played out on the Earth and humanity, all according to agreements installed in the slave species' overall consciousness as to the extent and extremes by which they can be subjugated, dominated, and indeed depopulated or suffer genocide. That the controllers are resigned to the parameters and agreements as set by their slave species as to what they can actually do to them, but then the reptilians are masterful at installing these agreements through various means, technological, subliminally, and through the marketing surface ideas that seem to be beneficial, but are laced with additional unseen ideas of control intentionality. Evidently a species then that had surrendered agreement utterly to their own respective expression of Dark Force reptilian controllers, and the group and myself would assume the attire that would have us blend in with this species. For as I said, this desolation of a planet with its associated species was where we had been led, from the data as revealed from the robot we had disassembled. We would enter now a large cave system, positioned within one of the planet's FEMA-style containment pens, where the surviving humanoids were permitted to go, though under constant scrutiny, by the heavily armed militia as they went about executing their various enforced labour tasks. The militia would be fully clad in armoured bodysuits of a very advanced design. They also would all be adorning complete head and face concealing masks, the possibility that they may not all be necessarily of the same species as the surviving humanoids then, but this would never be confirmed. The militia's overall numbers would be supplemented by an array of robotic body forms also, that would assist in the maintained control of the surviving humanoids. Interestingly, the robots were not uniform in their appearance, but presented as genders, male and females, the distinctions quite apparent. The female robots, designed to look very feminine indeed, curved and breasted, though utterly metallic, and indeed it was the female robots we were seeking. That just like the robot we had dismantled in the underground systems from the previous dimensional position, the female robots here contained within their circuitry a file or data stream detailing our next destination. As I said, we were following a trail of clues leading us to eventually some position or other of importance. We would subdue a number of the female robots, ensuring our actions didn't draw attention, and where we may have a situation we then had to deal with, we rather wanted to get in, secure the data, and move on with as little issue and entanglement as possible. This we would accomplish, although dismantling the female robots wasn't necessary on this occasion. Just to subdue them, attach a small computer-like device to them, and effectively upload the data we sought. And now we would proceed. We had the final data information, which revealed that the next required position for us to locate lay beyond the current FEMA-style camp we were in, and into the desert and rather inhospitable wastelands beyond, made inhospitable by whatever method the controllers had exacted their depopulation event, which had rendered most of the planet barren. There would be a checkpoint up ahead, a kind of guard tower, for the FEMA-style camps were designed that no one could enter or leave without being detected, but we were assured of our ability to bypass the containment security through the RealAwareness, which can afford the simulated forms everything required for every eventuality. The experience would end there, nothing revealed as to the exact nature of that which we were assigned to acquire, but for whatever reason a trail of clues had been placed within the mechanics and data storage files of robots in two unrelated creational positions and circumstances. The robots in the underground systems had been abandoned and more or less obsolete, and had been as such for what impressions suggested was excessive periods of so-called time. However, they had come to find themselves in the situation they were. The data we sought had been stored in a particular robot, as I said, as though the moment would always come where it would at some point be retrieved. And the female robots, as a part of the Dark Force militia controlling a depopulated slave species, also containing this data we required, by whatever hand had placed it within their computer-like filing systems. And although then I never would be shown what came of all this, exactly what we would secure and for what purpose, within the desert wastelands of the planet we had been on, impressions revealed we would attain it, and that it was a something of immense galactic project-orientated importance, something left there long ago for us to find via the clues, the robot files of information we had secured, and perhaps more may be revealed in real side experiences to come.